Hi, my name's Richard, and today I'm going to show you how to make a low poly barrel in Blender like this. It's going to be used for something like gaming or something that requires low polys. This is actually only, if we just click into it and click tab, we will see that it's only 18 faces. So it's what's that? 36 triangles, something like that. 60 triangles. Oh yes, of course the thing at the top would require it. So not too shabby at all. And the way we're going to do this is we're going to create a high poly barrel, and then we'll create a low poly equivalent, and we will make the normal maps to it and stuff like that. If I just show you the difference between when the normal map's not enabled, you can see it looks pretty flat. When we give the normal map texture to it, suddenly it looks like it's got an edge to it. So that's absolutely very, very cool. And we'll go through all the steps. I've had quite a few requests to do this, so this is I'm going to try and do this in one go. I'm going to try and squeeze this into an hour, so I'm going to rattle through. I'll probably ramble at points. I may well pause. My apologies in advance if I'm not the best YouTube broadcaster, so I hope it works for you. I'm going to start off by creating a new Blender file. Let's reload the startup file, and away we go. Okay, just a couple of things. I have removed the timeline window. There is no need for that because we're not animating, and we need some real estate on this one. I've also switched off the 3D manipulator. That's it. I don't like that at all, so I've switched that off as well. Okay, I'm going to quickly pause and I'll stick the screencast keys on. Be right back. Apologies, back in the game now. So you should see on the bottom left here that I am. You can follow any keys that I use as I go along. This is basically building a barrel is an exercise in edge loops, as you're shortly about to find out. Most of the time it's creating edge loops and scaling them up and down. But have a look down there. I won't be saying what keys I use most of the time, so you'll want to either A, understand Blender, or B, just follow the key sets down there, which sounds terribly painful. So I'm hoping you've got some skills before we get started. So let's go. We're going to delete the cube. And what we'll do is we'll go into the orthographic mode, and we will add ourselves a cylinder. Okay. The first things we're going to do is we're going to create the high poly barrel. So let's shade it as smooth. Okay. And then we'll tab into edit mode, and I'm going to select the top and bottom faces and delete them. I like to use Control Tab, which brings up the mesh select menu. You can use these ones down here if you want to, but I find Control Tab very easy to keep next to your fingers. So we're going to select the top one and then shift right click the bottom, X delete faces. There we go. And now let's add ourselves a rim in the middle here, and we'll do that by adding 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, bang, like that. You can do that by scrolling the mouse, the middle mouse button up to do that, or you can press the page up button. But we want 5 edge loops, okay? And when you've selected that, just right click immediately to cancel. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to scale those to get, excuse me, I don't know what happened then, scale there on the Z and pull them down. I think it's subdivided them, hasn't it? So let's just, there we go, sorry about that. Scale on the Z and pull that down like that to create roughly where we want the rim. Okay, what we'll do, next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a subdivision surface actually before we continue, because we want this to be nice and smooth. So let's do that. We'll click onto the modifiers and we'll say add a modifier, and it's the subdivision surface. Let's do 2 so we can see what we're doing. Okay, right, now we can do the scale out. So I've alt right click to select this the middle edge loop, and I'll scale that out roughly to somewhere about there, and then I'll alt right click the one above it and alt shift right click the one below the middle one, and let's scale that out as well. Now you'll see what's happening straight away is that the whole barrel is starting to come out. So we'll sort that out by adding an edge loop here and sliding down, Control R, and then an edge loop here and sliding up. There we go. And now we can have a look at our barrel. At first glance it looks a little sharp, so let's just grab the middle one, scale that in a bit, and I might just do all 3 and scale again just to pull it in. Let's have a look now. Okay, that looks good to me as a rim. Okay, and rather than create multiple rims, what we'll do is we'll use an array to create the top rim, the 2 in the middle, and the 1 at the bottom. So what I'll do is I will create an array modifier, And the first thing it does is get it wrong and put it on the right. We want it on top of it, so we'll set that to 0, and then we'll go, that's the x-axis, that's the y-axis, and this is the z, so we'll just do 1, and we want 4. Okay, so what we'll do, once we've applied the arrays, we'll delete the top bit and bottom bit, so that creates kind of the bottom top rims. But what's fairly obvious is that this is much too tall, so let's tab into edit mode and alt right click the top and alt shift right click the bottom, and we'll scale S to scale on the Z, and we'll bring this down to something that looks a bit more like a barrel size, something like that. Good. Okay, we can adjust this in a minute, but for now let's apply that array. It'll probably complain because it wasn't the top one, yes, but that's going to be absolutely fine. We'll tab into edit mode. Okay, we've got the bottom one selected, so let's just X delete vertices there. Oh, must have had, hang on. Okay, I'll do B to box select. I like to use box select to select vertices. I know a lot of people prefer to use circle select, but I'm a big fan of box select. Okay, and then we'll click X to delete vertices there, and we'll do exactly the same at the top. And you may remember we created an extra edge loop here just to keep things tight, so let's just get rid of that as well. It's that one, right? Yeah, and at the bottom we'll do the same. Yeah, they are. Good. And for reasons of I'm not sure why, probably OCD, I'm going to delete these edge loops here because they're not needed, and they're just part of the... hang on, before you do that, I should imagine we've got to remove the doubles. When you apply an array, particularly when you've got a relative offset, that these vertices will be joined or doubled up at least. So if we just remove doubles, yes, we've got 96 vertices that we've just removed. Just something to always try and do after you've applied an array modifier. Not always easy to remember, but worth doing. Okay, we'll click X and then we'll delete those edge loops. And I think that looks a bit too short, so let's scale that on the Z. About there. I'm happy with that. I'm happy with that. What we'll do is we'll tab back into edit mode and alt right click the bottom one and press F to create a face. On the top I'm going to get a little bit more adventurous. I will add like a little lip and a rim, so let's just press E to extrude and then S to scale, pull it in. Same again, E and S, pull it in, but this time we'll go into front view, click Z to go into wireframe mode, and grab those on the Z and pull it down. Okay, so if I'm going to tab out on the Z, yeah, that's worked, but it's created a very smooth edge, and I wanted this to be a bit sharper. So guess what? Time for a couple of edge loops. So we'll create one inside there, pull that up tight, and we'll do it on this one, pull it in tight. How's that look? That's good. And I'm guessing we'll have to do it for this bit here, which let's just try it. Yeah, that's a spoon effect, isn't it? So let's sort that out. Okay, so we will create another edge loop there and just drag that in. And what we'll do rather than do it afterwards is we'll extrude and scale and just pull it in a touch again. And now we'll hit face. Let's have a look. Yeah, that's the stuff. There, nice smooth barrel edge there. Possibly a bit too smooth for a barrel, but hey. Oh, the other thing I wanted to do was add a little plug at the top here. So let's do that. We'll go into front view and we'll just Shift A, add a mesh. Oh no, hang on. Sorry, we need to be edit mode. Excuse me. Shift A. We're going to add a cylinder. Where are you? There you are. I'll grab that on the Z, pull it up, scale it right down. It looks like a circle, ball at the minute, doesn't it? That's okay. It looks like there's going to be some more edge loops coming along, and then we'll grab that on the X, pull it across. For reasons I've never quite understood, this is not smooth, so let's quickly tab into edit mode and click smooth. Still looks terrible, but that's okay because we're about to do some work on it. We will do Control R twice, and then right click and scale on the Z axis just to pull that right in. Ooh. Interesting. You can scale it, I suppose you can scale it bigger than the original object. There, how's that look? Pretty damn terrible. Why is that? I don't know. But in order to get edge loops, in order to get a decent normal map, we'll need to select these two and scale them out. Something like that. Obviously it's absolutely enormous at the moment. One of my favourite tools, if you are hover your mouse over the area that you want to select all the mesh items and just click L and it will select everything. And now we can just be a bit more sensible about how we scale that. That looks in the right place to me. Scale it down a touch more, and then we'll grab on the Z obviously and pull that down. I want it to go inside, yes, about there. How are we looking? Oh, that looks fine. Might grab it on the X and just move it across a bit. There we go. And that, to me, looks like a pretty good barrel. I'm just going to rename it now. We'll call it barrel underscore barrel underscore high, and let's save our file. Okay, I've created a few of these, so I'll call it barrel tutorial.blend, override the existing one, and we're done. That's a good looking barrel. That's our high poly version. So without further ado, let's oh yes, one thing we should do is adjust the rotation and scale. More importantly, the scale. Let me just have a quick look before we do it. What happens when you scale this stuff out? Yes, there you go. You see the Z-axis is slightly higher. I like to make sure these are all set to 1, 1 and 1. So you just do Control A. You could just do scale, but I always like to do rotation and scale, so it's all in good shape. Okay, I don't think it matters too much for the high poly, but you want to do that for the low poly, or the unwrap gets into a few problems, which we'll come into later on. So, okay, good. That's our high poly one done. So let's create the low poly version. We're in object mode. Shift A. And we will add a mesh, and guess what, we're going to add a cylinder. There it is. Okay, now unlike the high poly barrel, we want to put this down to, well, I'm going to say 16. This is a design choice, and I guess an experience choice depending on what kind of game or what environment you're going to be using this in. 16 is pretty low, and you could even go up to 24. Heck, you could do 32 and just not smooth it out. But it comes down to the game that you're using, whether it's for you can get away with being more intensive, perhaps like a new console, next gen console. If you're using a tablet, probably 16 is about the acceptable level these days. But again, I'm going to go with 16 because it's a good average, and when you see it unwrapped and with the texture applied, you'll see it looks pretty good. But like I say, you will have to have a think about that. But try it out with 16 and see how you get on. Let's move it so it's roughly in the middle, and then we're going to click Z to go into wireframe and then scale it on the Z axis till it's roughly the right size. I want it to be exactly the same size, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to tab into edit mode. I'm going to select the top portion, and I am going to use the snap tool, okay, and we'll snap to edges. Okay, and this is great because what you can now do, I'll just do shift space to maximize this window, is if I grab that on the Z, you'll see that what happens is as I move my mouse up, it snaps to the nearest edge on the high poly version. So this is great news, and we can just keep moving up until it doesn't go any higher, and we'll left click to do it. We'll do the same at the bottom as well. I can't see the verts, but I know they're roughly where they are, and we'll grab that on the Z. Same rules apply. See, if you're nowhere near an edge, it'll just move around, but as soon as it gets close to one, it'll snap to it, and as soon as it does, go on. There we go, something like that. Right, there we go. Okay, so we tab out and Z now. We can see that we've got a high and a low poly, one hidden behind the other. What we will do is we will actually we don't need the high poly one for a moment, so let's just select it and click H to hide. Here's our rather unimpressive, at the moment at least, low poly one, and what we want to do is add some seams to it. So we'll alt right click the top, Control E, mark seam, or right click the bottom, alt right click the bottom, Control E, mark seam, and then I want to do it at the back, I think. So I will go to the back view. How do you do that? I thought it was Control 1, it's not. Shift Control 1. Oh, look at that, it goes to what? User auto. Okay. So I'm going to do it. That one, I think. Gosh, I don't know. Z. Yeah, that's the back one. Sorry if I'm making that a bit confusing, but it doesn't matter too much. But I'm going to make it the back one. So you'll see now that we've got 3 seams, and that will unwrap perfectly, I'd imagine. For a couple of other things we want to do, though, is again, we want to apply the rotation and scale on it. We want this to be smooth for reasons that when you do bake the normals, it may cause some problems if you don't have it as smooth. But when I go to smooth shading, you will see that it kind of looks a bit rubbish. This edge here is neither here nor there. So what we can do to get around that is add the edge split modifier. There. And now you can see that's looking much more like a cylinder. Okay, a nice crisp cylinder. Right, so let's unwrap it. Bring up the UV window. We'll just drag that across and then select UV image editor. Let's add a new one. We'll call it barrel normal, something like that, right? Okay, and what we'll do is actually we'll make this a UV grid for now at least, and then we'll come over to here. Let's just zoom out. Apologies for the amount of real estate here. I know I'm running a bit tight on space. We'll come over to this one. We'll select all, click U, and unwrap, and there we go. So what we can do is we can have a quick look to see how it looks. Because there's a light there, what we can do is we can actually what we could do, if I move that to 3 or something, there, good idea. Right, when you do that, if there's no light, then it just becomes completely flat. So you can see now this is like the perfect unwrap, the unwrap you dream of, where every single bit of it is completely square. There is no issues with stretching or warping. You've got it absolutely perfect. So we're very happy with that. So we can comfortably bake the normals, and I'm going to show you how to do that right now. Let's just quickly rename this. So we'll call it barrel low. And if we Alt H, there we go. That brings in our high poly version. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to bake the high one onto the low one. Right, here we go then. So we'll have our barrel low selected, bring up the camera screen, and we will go to the very bottom and click bake. And if we click on the down arrow, we'll see a whole bunch of options here. The bake mode is important. I'll just drag that across there, because that is where we're going to select the normals. Okay, there's a whole host of things here. There's a few I know, there's a few I really don't understand at all. In fact, most of them I don't. But the ones that I care about are the normal maps. So let's just do that now. Let's bake those normals. We are going to do, and again I need to do this, it's selected to active. Okay, so what that means is you're going to select a whole bunch of things, but the last thing you select is active. So if you wanted to bake various textures onto the bump maps basically onto this low poly version, you would select everything other than the low poly one, and then finally select the low poly one, and that's what that means. The distance and the bias are a whole bunch of fun, whereby if you did have objects that were further away that you wanted to imprint, if you like, on the normal, then you would adjust the distance, and the bias is very similar. I've played around with this for quite a bit. I've never really worked out what the true difference between the bias and the distance is. The documentation's a little vague. What I tend to do is play around until I can get it just right, and then never touch it again. The margin is how much either side of the image when you bake things that kind of bleeds out, just to give you a bit of extra space. I like to go for 8 pixels. Before I do anything else, I had forgotten, I'm going to tab into edit mode on the low poly. I'm just going to scale this down a bit. I think snap to what's it still on? Yes, it is. You can tell that because it was kind of moving chunky. I just like to scale it down a bit. That's possibly a bit too much. Let's just use shift space, just so that we've got a bit of overlap either side. So if I'm painting the texture either side, it's not going to cause any weird overlaps. These are the top and bottom. I'm not sure which is which, but I'll select one edge, one vertex, click L, and then G to grab, and then do the same with this one. So there's kind of space everywhere, you know. You may want to expand the size of this, but then you lose the scale of this, so it gets a bit confusing. So for now, that's good enough. Okay. Apologies. I'm kind of rushing through this. I hope this. Let me know, please, in the comments if anything isn't making sense, or if if you want a longer tutorial, I can break this down if necessary into smaller parts. Right, now we can go for it. So we'll firstly select the high poly barrel, and then we'll select the low poly barrel. Okay, we've got our normals, we've got selected to active. Let's give it a bake and see what happens. I'm pleased to say that's absolutely perfect. It's worked really well. The plug, whatever you want to call it, is there. These lines are here. All of the normals appear to be facing in the right direction. This is something that can often happen, but hasn't happened here. We're in good shape, so we can actually give this a go and have a look at it now to see how that looks in on the actual low poly. We'll just hide the high poly one, and we will click on textured, and you'll see that actually that's just not entirely what we want at all. So the way to do this is we need to create a new material for the object, and we'll call that, I don't know, barrel matte or something. And then with that, you go to the textures, which is right next to it. Click this, and we'll call it, I don't know, barrel normal. Let's save this, shall we? This image as well while we're at it. Save image. Cannot save image path. Have I saved this? Yes, I have. So let's just do save as image. Is it save as image? Excuse me. And we'll call it barrel normal. I know there's one there already. That was when I was messing around with it. So we'll override that. That's absolutely fine. Barrel underscore normal. Right. Sorry, I'm bouncing around. I did tell you I'd be a bit loose with this. So we've got barrel normal. It's enabled, but at the minute it seems to be cloud. So let's quickly change that to an image or movie. Sliding down a bit further, it's going to ask us what image we want, and we've only got one. It's going to be the barrel normal. There it is. Few things we go down under image sampling. You click normal map. Image mapping, I don't think you need to touch. The coordinates are going to be UV because we're using a UV layout. That's what happens when you edit. This is called a UV unwrap. Okay, so its coordinates can be UV. And finally, it's not the color one; it's the normal map. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, hang on a minute. That's exactly as it was before, and that's because we need to go into the shading and select a different shading mode. GLSL. I was expecting textured solid there, but it's not there. GLSL. I don't. Okay, we'll just bear with me. The reason that's not showing anything at all is we need to move the light back to the first layer. Okay, that's good. That's worked. Usually it says GLSL something shading, but it hasn't, and it's worked a treat. So let's have a little play, see if we can. Yeah, the light doesn't work on that one. Let's just quickly try moving that around. Now, I hope what you can see is that it's rather cool that it's using the normal map to create an image, an impression that image actually does have some depth to it in various areas, which is brilliantly cool, right? We can just prove that a second by clicking on here, and then unselecting it. You can see it's completely flat, and now do that, and there we go. We've got a kind of look and feel like it's got various pieces to it. I guess the one obvious thing here is if you go to the front view, okay, it's pretty obvious when you actually look at it like this that there is no rim, right? The light is working beautifully and it's kind of creating a little trick to us here, but if you actually look at it, it hasn't got a rim at all. Now, I played around with adding just a couple of rims and just to see if I could make it look a little bit better. I could not. I found that adding actual additional geometry to this to try and create the impression of a rim actually made it worse. It just looked terrible. So I would not propose you do that. Either just simply don't use normal maps on that section, or go with what I've done here. Again, it's the same for this. I mean, from certain angles, this top piece here does indeed look like it's got a plug on, but as you slide down here, it becomes worthless. So, excuse me. Depending on your on your line of sight, you may or may not want to include that. Okay, but this is good. We're off to a really good start. But now we want to add a texture to it, because at the minute obviously it's nothing without a texture. So let's go in and create a texture. We will let's do it from here. We'll create a new, let's drag that through over there. We'll create a new image, is that one, and we'll call this barrel diffuse, which seems to be the favourite name of the texture map. This is good stuff. Okay, we're going to save as image. Again, it might complain. No, barrel diffuse is good. Okay, we're going to go into GIMP and we will begin editing it and drag some textures in. One thing I'd like to be able to do is export this UV layout so I can see in GIMP what I'm dealing with. Okay, so let's do that. So let's just do UVs, export UV layout. Man, I've done this a few times. I'll call it UVs.png. I know that exists already, but that's because I've been playing around with it. You want the opacity to be 0, otherwise it kind of creates a white sort of semi background. And UVs.png. Great. Export UV layout. Okay, and we have the barrel diffuse. Let's save that as well. We have already. So let's load that up into GIMP, which I hope is around somewhere. It'll be under where are we? Documents, Blender, barrel 2, UVs.png. Okay, that's just put up in there. So we'll just right click it and select edit with GIMP. Pop up GIMP. Okay, here we are. GIMP just needs to be dragged up a touch. Try and get as much real estate as I can. There we go. So there we go. So we've got ourselves our UV layout. Not very clear. Let's just control mouse button back. Alrighty. Now, what I like to do sometimes is just add a new layer, just a white background. That's perfect. Yeah, we'll call this background or something, just so we can see what we're doing to start with. And we'll move the UVs to the top. Not again. I had this problem earlier on, where for the life of me, I don't know what's going on. It seems to sort of half work. Yeah, you can see this has now stopped again. It's now stopped working. I need to pause this briefly just to get a rough idea of what on earth is going on. Back in a moment. Okay, I am kicking off again. I have a horrible feeling that this is being caused actually by my screen capture tool. In which case, because it's just worked absolutely beautifully, and it's all of a sudden, as soon as I start capturing, it stops working. So we may have to do this whole tutorial again, but let's hope not. Right, I've managed to move the UVs to the top and the background at the bottom, but what I want to do is pull in some textures. And here we have the textures that I grabbed from CG Textures earlier on. I searched for barrel and got this rather excellent looking barrel where we've got a top and a bottom, and also a nice flattened out barrel texture. So we'll drag that in. We'll start with the side piece, which, excuse me, is over here. You can't see that right now, but there it is. So what we can do is we click it and then we shift left click and drag. Hello. Apologies, another quick pause. I think what had happened was I was trying to drag a shortcut. So let me try again. I'm going to shift left click and there we go. Put it in. Good stuff. Okay, that's coming now. Just do Control A just to get it going. And clearly we need to move this down to line up with these guys. Okay, so let's do that now. We'll use the move tool, which is already there. Move the active layer, and we will just begin by pressing down. Okay, we'll just kind of get it in the right place. As it turns out, I've got lucky, I think. Let's just do that. This is really weird. It's still kind of half working. I think it might be my screen capture tool, but you can, apologies anyway. You can see the barrel there, and you can see the lines there. So we are very close indeed. Good news. So let's save this. What you need to do as well is unselect the UV map, and then we'll just do a quick save. We'll call this diffuse or whatever. I'll call it barrel diffuse, shall we? Lovely. Okay. And also use the export tool to export as barrel diffuse.png. It'll probably complain, yeah, replace that. Say export. Alright, now if we slide back into Blender, what we now need to do is get to the textures. Let's just drag that across, hide that out of the way. Oh, look at that, it seems to have automatically reloaded it. Did I do that? Or did it, is it got some funky new tool that can do this? This might be new in one of the newer versions of Blender, but let's get it in here. So we've got a new texture and we'll call it barrel diffuse. Okay, and again it's an image. Image or movie. Interesting what a movie would be like. That'd be pretty cool, huh? And then barrel diffuse. And you can see it's all wonky, but that will be because the mapping needs to be UV. Okay, and it is the color one. This is great news. So let's just get our light source. Let's grab it and put it down there and have a look. What we might want to do, oh, that's worked really well, hasn't it? You can see how great that really looks. I've got kind of lucky, and the reason I got lucky, if I can just explain why I'm lucky, if I click back into here, drag this across a bit, the normal maps, hard to explain. Yes, can you see what I've done? I've managed to line, or yeah, I guess kind of luck, it had to work like this. You'll see that the normal map, in terms of where the rim is being formed, it lines up perfectly with those two rusty areas of the texture, which is really, really good news. Okay, very happy with that. I'm going to add a different light. I'm going to add a hemi light as well to this, just while we get started, and then I may be able to adjust the strength of that. Can I? Yeah, that's good. Okay, good, that's a bit better, isn't it? Now we can see what we're doing. Obviously the top and bottom aren't working, so one thing I was going to do, it's a bit late now, it's not too late, so if I go in over here and just just drag that across again, drag that across. It's all very tight for space, isn't it? And then we'll go over into paint mode, and I'll just tab into edit. Here we go. And I think the painting's white at the minute. Let's just do blue, and we'll do a brush, and then we'll just paint that at the top. That's not working. Why isn't it letting me paint on it? Don't be cruel. What am I missing? Help me out. What am I doing wrong? I was hoping I could paint these circles so I could see what I was doing. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Okay, I'm at a loss. What have I missed? Ah, it's white. It probably is working. It was just the wrong colour. So let's do that blue and that green. And you can see that this left-hand circle here, unwrap, is the top look. That's the bottom. So we'll quickly save that. We don't need to save it. We just now know. Pop back into Blender, into GIMP, excuse me, and we will bring the UVs back up, and we'll import those other textures, starting with the top one, right? Because you may not even want to use the bottom one, but it has to use the top one. Okay, which is this one. Or just shift right click and drag. I think it's massive. Yes, it is. So let's quickly scale that layer, and I think last time I scaled it to around about 40%. Let's start with 40, see how we get on. That's a good start, isn't it? And we're in the move move the active layer. So let's just drag that roughly into the right place. It's hard to see, right? But we'll get there. Let's just line that up roughly. And now we need to use the scale tool. Select it. Again, we are in trouble. It's not working. I'm going to try pausing it and see if pausing it and then coming back works. Bear with me. Okay, hi, sorry about that. It would appear that scaling using the soft keys, the shortcut keys, seems to do the job. So I may be doing that in GIMP, unless I'm missing something here and there's something really weird going on that I don't understand. I think this thing is not functioning correctly. That's the annoying thing about the scale tool in GIMP is that you can't see the layers above it. So I'm going to do that again. I'm just going to take a guess, and also I'd like to keep the I'd like to lock the percent, so let's just do that as well. One more go. Sorry, I'll lock those together. There we go. Now if I drag, yeah, that's it. It keeps its scale. So let's just do it in increments. We'll just do a little smaller one. Click on scale. I'll anchor the layer. Right click and do anchor layer. Okay, we can see that we need to scale it again. A little bit more brutal. Scale that. We're very close now, aren't we? I'll just move it. It lets me move it. No, it doesn't. It's still in scale. You see? So what's the move tool? Not working. Move the active layer. I am selecting the active layer. Oh, it is working. Excuse me. Most bizarre. Okay, I'm going to do one more scale. Again, that's Shift T, which does work. I'm just going to nudge it down just a touch more and scale. And I'm going to go with that. Try and just get it close. I think that's about as good as I could hope for. I mean, I can fiddle around with it. You could maybe fiddle around with this at your leisure, but let's save it and also export it. I'm using one of the later versions of GIMP 2.8.1, which is the one that's all in one screen rather than multiple windows. It doesn't work, but it is. I think it does work. That's not true. It's not working for me right now, as it should. Okay, so before we export, I'll show you what happens because I haven't unselected the UVs. If I go back into Blender and do image, reload image, pop in here, you can see that it's actually kept the lines on the thing. But look at that, huh? We will now go back to GIMP and unselect the UVs and then export again. And while that's done that, we'll do a reload. Is it Alt R? Yes, it is. And we can see that we've got a rather cracking looking barrel here. Again, you can kind of see the joins, right? You can see that there's 16 things. You can kind of, get a little bit away, give it a bit of angle, and suddenly you've got a rather good looking barrel indeed. I'm going to just up the intensity of view. I thought there we go. There's a lot of shine on this. Let's just get the shine right down. The barrel wouldn't shine that much, especially an old barrel, which is go to the mill and go to the specular and get that right down. This is, you want it. I don't know. Just tinker with it until it's something like that. There we go. So everything reflects a little bit. Again, I'm not going to play around with that too much. Okay, good. We're looking great. So all that remains now is to do, well, there's a couple of things that remain. Let's do the bottom piece. Do we care? Possibly not, but let's, for consistency, let's finish this off so that when the game providers do sort it out. One thing interesting is that the That there is in completely the wrong place. I wonder if we can get away with it. Let's tab in and go over here. Just get rid of that. I think I'm still in paint mode over here, aren't I? Let's go back to view mode. Okay, good. Now what happens if I rotate this? It rotates the whole thing, look. I suppose what I need to do is rotate the image. I'm not going to do that, but your challenge, there you go, a bit of homework for you. Get that aligned with where I've put that. I would probably suggest going forward that you look at the image you're going to be texturing and then think about where you want to put it before you actually unwrap it and do all this and put your plug somewhere. I would go down that road. I'm not going to do that now, but potentially we could do that. Right, so let's get the bottom one on. Back to GIMP, and we will then go to our thing here, barrel to, and we'll just shift right click that, shift left click and drag. Again, it's massive. I'm going to do layer scale. I'm going to try something like 36, 37 this time. So 36%. Get our UVs back on. We're in drag mode. I mean, I think I like that, and I'll tell you why. Because I'm going to actually just grab the bottom bit there, and then it's hard to see, but maybe I can show you with it off and on. You can see that I'm not using much, if any, of that shadowed area, so that's good news. So let's just do file. You notice I'll switch the UVs off. We'll do file export. Back to GIMP we go, and now over here, Alt R. Let's have a look underneath. There it is. Let's just quickly grab the Hemi if you like. Do Shift Space to maximise that screen. Just grab that, rotate it upwards, grab it again, rotate it upwards, something like that. That'll be fine. And we can see the barrel underneath. Okay, it's not clean, but it's not bad at all. Alright, now it doesn't take a genius to work out where the seam is. I don't think. No, and that's a pretty bad looking seam. I'm going to try, in the time I've got left, I'm going to try and fix that. Let's just grab on the Z, rotate down. I'm going to try and fix that, and we'll do that right now. If we're happy, don't do any of this until you're happy that everything is looking good in GIMP, okay? Because when you start doing this, adjusting this image, you will not be able to kind of hot swap between this and GIMP. There's a whole bunch of things coming into Blender that are going to allow you to edit the images actually in Blender tool right now. It's very, very limited, but I think the Google Summer of Code had a whole bunch of things that would let you edit the file in Blender, things like layers and stuff like that, which is going to be great. But what we will do, just to finish this job off, at least is have a try at trying to get something that looks a little bit more sensible on the seam. What we can do is have a look at why this looks so terrible in GIMP before we continue. I think if we quickly tab, put UVs back on, I think the reason's pretty clear. I think this left hand side is left and right hand side, this is getting dark over here. So what we could potentially do is get our side image, which is this one, and we will do a scale if it's going to let us. Shift T, isn't it? There we go. We're not going to hold that. We're going to keep that as it is. We'll just grab this and pull it out. I can't see the black line, so I'm just going to guess. Put it somewhere clean like that. I'm going to do the same on this side. Something like that. Let's just have a look. Right, that's going to be much better. And I'll tell you why. It's because there's no darkness or dark bits either side. So let's just save that and we'll export it as well. Give ourselves a fighting chance. Okay, now if we pop back into Blender and now do Alt R. That's better, isn't it? I mean, you can see there's problems with the name and things like that, but you know what, for now I'm not gonna. Oh, I was just thinking what are those lines doing there. It's because we didn't switch the UVs off. There we go. Right, we'll do it again. File, export to barrel diffuse, Alt R. And now we're looking pretty tight, right? I'm going to hide this. I'm going to no, I'm not. I was going to do that, but I won't. And now I don't think I have a choice, right? So, what happens when can I maybe move the mouse off the screen? No. Interesting. Let's bring that back and go to UV image editor. Okay, well, for now at least, we'll bring up the image here, and what we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit of clone brush to try and tidy some of this stuff up. Okay, I love the clone brush. It's a bit of an art, but it's not too difficult at all. What we will do is we will go into the texture paint mode. Okay, now I could go into great detail about all the different brushes and all the sorts of things you can do, but I'm not going to, because there is quite a lot of information on the internet already about this. All I will say is I'm going to use the clone tool, and the way the clone tool works is that you control left click where you want to start the if you like, copy that particular area of the image, and then you left click and drag as you want to go. You can see there's some serious problems here. We just don't have time for this. I'd like to really start tinkering with the image to try and line this up as best I can, but at the minute it looks pretty shabby. From that distance you're not going to see it. Get up close, you've got problems. But again, if you never see it from the back, problem solved. Right, let's try and clean this up. So I've got the clone tool selected. I don't like to go too mad. Shift F adjusts the strength. That one is like super strong, and sort of halfway isn't too bad. I like to go for a little lighter. Tablets, people love tablets for things like this, but I haven't got one handy. I have one, but I haven't got it handy. I'm going to make it a smaller size, and I'm going to where are we? No, it's not going to work. It might work. Just doing 6 to move around. There we go. Right, so let's select over there somewhere, and just now left click and drag. You can see straight away that this is working rather well. I just like to just move it around, find the right place, and then just remember, Control Z is your friend here. This could take a little while, but you'll get the idea. Another way you can do this, by the way, I found this did work quite well, is just to do that and actually just grab big chunks and then make it a bit stronger, and then just literally do that. And actually, you look at it, it actually works pretty well. I'm going to slow it right down for that and make it a bit lighter for this bit. You can see that the idea is to get rid of this seam, make it invisible, and you can by just tinkering around. I've done a pretty good job there, if I do say so myself. You can just edge this stuff in. I think this works because this is a really raggedy looking barrel. You would imagine this would be more difficult for more less noisy images, like that. Like I say, just take short left click and drags, and then that way, if you do make a big Control Z very quickly. Okay, let's just drag that across. You gotta love the clone tool. Again, I'm gonna do a Shift F, drag it right in, and then F nice and big. Just do something funky like that. I'm getting away with it on this because, because it's so noisy. I think if you're a connoisseur, you'd definitely notice that, wouldn't you? A connoisseur is the wrong word, isn't it? You know what I mean. The reason it's working like this and it's working so well is because of the stroke, not the stroke, the curve. This is the curve, and what that means is it starts off super strong in the start of right in the center, and as it goes down, it fades off and then just gently loops out. You've got different options here. You can have it set flat. If you do that, you can see that it literally creates a completely round image. So this is the one to go for. Smooth out. I mean, they're much of a muchness, particularly in the clone tool. Where are we? We're just getting to the bottom. Let's finish this off and I'll quickly pause. Okay, let's loosen up on the strength. I What did I do that for? The I've got a choice here. I can either move the image or hide the grid bars. I think I'll move the image, so let's just quickly pop into object mode, grab on the Z, just move it up, back into texture paint. You know when you're doing well when you don't know whereabouts the seam is. That's what I always think. Okay. I feel like I should maybe time lapse this, but I don't know how to. So. I think we need a bit more strength than that, don't we? Notice I'm going horizontally. It seems to be the right thing to do. You can go vertically, but I have to say that's pretty tidy. Do you know? Look at that. What would have been rather cool is if I'd used that as the seam. But again, that requires a little bit of image manipulation. But come on, that's pretty tight. The only other thing we might need to be aware of is this join here. That's right. How am I doing for time? Bear with me. Sorry. Yep. So what I'm going to do is I will just show you how I will do this. I think it might be kind. No, see, it's not letting me do it, and the reason it's not letting me do it, I hope anyway, is because there's an occlude here somewhere. Let me just remind myself where it is. Stroke space options. Yeah, it's these choices here, right? So we're just going to turn them off a second. Let's just see. Well, it doesn't help if you're not. Hang on. I've got edit mode, texture paint. Cull, occlude. I should remember these by now. It's been I've been a while since I've done them, but let's just tinker around. It's not letting me touch it at the minute. Now it's not letting me do anything at all, and I don't know why. What have I done differently? Am I in the clone tool? Yes, I am. It's working now. Okay. Weirdness. Okay, I'll quickly go to options and then, yeah, that seems. I think occlude. Only paint on the faces directly under the brush. Yeah, okay, fine. Cull, ignore faces pointing away from the view. Yeah, it's fine. Paint most faces onto it. Yeah, so I think we switch that off. What? Okay, I'm at a loss. I thought I'd done this. I'm in texture paint mode. It's something to do with the angle. I'm absolutely sure of it. It's being a real pain, but we need to lighten that right up and just start. You can see actually it needs a bit more than that, and we just start merging this in. Okay, and you can do this like this. You can do it any way you like, really, but this is the way I'm going to do it. I'm going to go around just every now and again. In fact, I'll do it every face or something like that. Just lining up. Sometimes you have to do this from a few different angles. I'm going to use a slightly different brush because I think that's blurring out too easily. So I'm going to use a slightly different brush that's a bit stronger for longer. That makes sense. Like that one, perhaps, or no, it's going to be that one. Well, you can drag these across, right? You can drag these across so they're a bit stronger for longer. Something like that. Let's try it. You see, it just makes the image a little less blurry. In fact, if I was being honest, I'd be very tempted to make that fall off extremely. Oh, that's a surprise. This is bizarre, right? Okay, something like that. Let's try it. I'm not going to do this at the bottom. I'm getting the feeling this is not going very well, because I'll tell you why. It's because the how much can I get away with? Yeah, this is too big, and I should have gone a bit smaller and just gone a little less strong. Yeah, not going to plan really. Yeah, that's a bit better. Something like that. Let's have a look, see how it's looking. Yeah, it's a bit tidier. The trick is, like I say, just to grab the edge. I was getting a bit overzealous then. I'm gonna pause this and then come back when it's finished. I'll be right back. Okay, I've done a very poor job on this, but you get the idea that I can you can clone around the edges and kind of smooth off that edge there. I haven't done it at the bottom either. Everything else I'm really pleased with. This is one 18 face barrel that you could export into whatever tool you like. Let's quickly save that actually. I like to use JMonkey Engine, occasionally Unity. I hope this has been useful. If anybody would like me to do another one of these, I'm more than happy to try and do a few more and learn as I go as well. Thank you very much for watching. I hope that you'll click the like, and I hope you'll click the subscribe, and speak to you soon. Thanks everyone for listening. Cheers now. Bye bye.